Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for today's podcast. I'm excited today to introduce you to Beverly Smirnis, and we're going to be talking about negotiating to live into your dream life. And heck, we can all use a bit more of that. So, welcome, Beverly. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate being your guest.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know her, Beverly is a journalist, an author, a blogger, a podcaster, and she pursues her own passion by interviewing others who are pursuing their passions, which I just love. She recently launched her new podcast called People Pursuing Passions. And again, as the founder of Women on Purpose, this is something that was near and dear to my heart. So I definitely wanted to get Beverly here and share some insights. So tell us, how did you come to this line of work, Beverly?
Well, I feel like my path towards journalism was a natural, very natural. And I showed signs of that from an early age. I always enjoyed like writing things and
Yeah.
originally started out in PR and then it kind of evolved into publishing magazines. One of the early opportunities that I got was with the home building industry. So I
Hmm.
still am involved with producing content and putting together home building industry magazines in
Yeah.
Texas here located. So, that's a very interesting industry that's one of our, the top industries in the country.
Yeah, I bet.
And then from there, I've been involved with other types of like luxury, super high end luxury magazines. And then I've written a couple of books and, all of it revolves around writing. And in
Yeah.
everything that I've done, whether I'm writing about real life people or characters in a book, it's what really drives them in their
Yeah.
lives that makes their lives interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. I think we should be building that into our education system more as well. We're so focused on these sort of monetary outcomes that we don't really encourage our kids often, I think, to pursue their passions. And probably as a result of that, I think it's fair to say most people, sadly, don't live the life of their dreams, right? They live the life that's expected. I think women, particularly, that's the case. So why do you think that is, Beverly?
Well, I think for a number of reasons. Like I think my parents were of the golden generation. And of that, they came of age, they graduated from college in late 50s. And in that time period, that all you had to do to guarantee success was to get a college degree
Yeah.
because not everyone got a college degree in that day. And there were a lot of opportunities that needed to be filled then. And people really thought that their dream job was to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
That generation, a lot of them got to the end of their working years and they look back and what did I really
Yeah.
accomplish? In some cases they were like downsized and not really appreciated for the years that they put
Yeah.
in. And so their children, the baby boomers, if you will, they started, a lot of baby boomers were very influenced though by their parents' direction. And these parents who that was their life experience had, they meant well in encouraging their kids, but and so many baby boomers also followed that same pattern, and it's just over the years gotten worse and worse and worse as
Yeah.
far as what corporate jobs, those traditional old school type of dream jobs, if they
Yeah.
thought were dream jobs anyway, are not what they were cooked up to be. And definitely in the newer generation, I have millennial aged kids
Yeah.
now, and they're like, well, why would we follow that path? Look where it got you. Like so more and more they're resisting against it. And with that comes the notion that, maybe going to college isn't everybody's
Yeah,
path.
that's true.
If you want to be an entrepreneur and work for yourself, do you really need that college degree?
Yeah.
You're going to be forging your own path. And we all need business knowledge and that kind of thing. But it doesn't necessarily always mean a 4-year college degree.
Yeah.
And that 4-year college degree or even a law degree doesn't assure you a job.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I had really pushed my kids about going to university because it had been a pretty transformative experience for me, but it has changed. Like it has become very much about getting the career, getting the job, getting the money, as opposed to that older school approach where it was about broadening how you look at life, like discovering yourself, frankly, discovering the world, asking smart questions. So if these university and colleges are all going to be about getting a job, then yeah, then why not pursue your passion. Now, what can we do to change the pattern, right? I mean, if that pattern has been, because even with the millennials now, I agree with you. I think they're saying, I don't want that lifestyle, but I'm still not sure they're actually being convinced to live into their dreams and vision as opposed to following expected paths that are just different now, right? I mean, whether it's social media as opposed to really digging deep. So, what do you suggest that we can do to change the pattern so that we can live our life on purpose and with passion?
Yes, I think a lot of us are, I was raised in a very traditional home and, in narrow thinking, so I think you have to be a bit of a rebel, and you
Yeah.
have to stick to you can't let anyone quash your dream, and you can't look to others. First of all, you can't live your life to please other people, and you can't look to others for approval on everything you do. When you're going down a different path that, maybe your parents or haven't they don't know that path, they're going to be critical of it. They're
Right.
going to discourage you. And you have to really be determined to say, I'm not going to let anyone discourage me. I know this is what I want to do. I'm determined. And I believe if you have enough willpower, you will find the way. You got to have the willpower, the stick to itiveness, and you'll find the way.
Yeah.
And I believe in natural talents too. Like when I was a very young child, I used to direct plays, and I would assemble all the kids in the neighborhood, and I'd write a play and I'd make them perform it. And
Yeah.
everybody just thought that was really cute, but no one really thought, hey, you know what, that's unusual to have that
Yeah.
talent at an early age. I
Yeah.
wish I had had a relative or something that was in show business that
Yeah.
could have, taken me down the path to show me that the career in film directing or something. Because I love the creative writing, and I get creative even when I'm writing about
Yeah.
industry things, So, um,
That so strikes a chord with me, and I'll let you circle back for any other tips you have on that. But oh my gosh, I was the same, right? Like I loved acting. I wrote the play for our grade 4 class to
yes,
perform for Christmas, right? I love to sing, I love to dance, I love creative writing.
yeah,
And yet I did well in school. So my parents, and we grew up, we didn't have a lot growing up. So my parents were like, "Oh my God," you could tell it was like, no, that nobody saw the arts as a real career possibility. And so they not too subtly pushed me. And yeah, I mean, I went through and you went through university and law school, shooting for those straight A's and built up a law practice. And suddenly midlife was like, what am I doing? Right. I feel like this empty hole still because I think I did what was expected of me. So I totally get what you're saying about that.
and I think so. Yeah, my parents were kind of the same way. They said, "Well, you need to go to college for sure," and I had good grades, so I got to go wherever I wanted. And of course, that was easier then than it is for
Yeah.
the kids now. But I went in declaring a business degree, and my father decided that I should be a CPA because
Yeah.
there were opportunities for women in CPA in the
Mm,
CPA world. And so
yeah.
he's like, this is a shoe in for you. And I had good math grades and stuff. And
Yeah.
and so, but I can only imagine how miserable I would have been as a
Yeah.
CPA. So when I took my first journalism class,
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, this is where I want to go." And so I liked it so much that I aced through all of my required courses and finished my major my junior year in college. So I had 24 hours of free electives left for my senior year. And I was doing all kinds of internships and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I lived with a bunch of girls that were also journalism majors, and they could not understand, you know, how I could ace a test without even buying a book
Yeah.
or studying for a test, because I'm like, well, it's journalism. It's either you're not going to learn it in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's either natural to you and you learn it by doing it, or, so I'm not worried about the test because to me that all the answers are common sense.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't know the answer, I could write well enough to convince the teacher what I was talking about, but
Yeah.
they got mad at me because it seemed to come so easily for
Yeah.
me, and they studied and got worse. They
Yeah.
didn't get my top
Yeah.
grades. So
I think when we follow our true passion,
yes,
it comes more easily to us because we're not that salmon stream, swimming upstream. We're flowing with the natural flow. And I want to circle back to something you said about that willpower piece. And for our
yes,
listeners, can't stress enough because Beverly's exactly right. Our parents, our friends, the people in our immediate circle, often with the best of intentions, end up being the people who hold us back the most from actually following our purpose. They think they're helping and keeping us safe, or, taking the safe path, and in doing that, what they're doing is planting seeds of doubt. So absolutely having that willpower, and I'd say, Beverly, I don't know what you think, tied to that, an absolute unshakable belief in your own dreams, right? To really pursue that, even in the face of the people you care about, giving you all the reasons why it ought not to work. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. Yeah. And that pertains not only to your career choice, but also your choices in, who you're going to spend your life with,
That's
your
true.
spouse. And I think too often people, they have this traditional path that they follow. They graduate from high school and they go to college and they get
Yeah.
their degree and they start a career and it's time to get married. And so
Yeah.
they look around and choose from the pool of people that might be in their world at that time, and they make safe choices,
Yeah.
but they never have the opportunity to find their soulmate. That I believe in that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
I lucky that I chose the right person the first time around.
Yeah.
But it was not a convenient relationship. I'm from Texas and he's from Toronto, Canada. And,
Oh, Toronto, my alma mater.
yes. And so, we had a long distance relationship. And once again, everyone tried to to
Of course.
discourage that.
Yeah.
Those things don't work out. Y'all have too many differences. He's from the Greek culture, we don't
Yeah.
understand that. Like, so to me, like I feel blessed. And I think there's a lot that you can learn by those passionate cultures that,
Yeah.
like
That's
my
true.
family has,
And so much of it is mindset. I often say that negotiating our mindset is our first and most important negotiation. So, what are some tips you have on how to create that, mindset of possibility, for want of a better term, instead of a limiting mindset or a mindset of
Well,
limitation?
just be yourself and have conviction in your own beliefs and don't live your life to please other people. Remember, it's your life to live, and looking for inspiration, look to people, if you look at the people that are making the most money in the world, most of them are rebellious type of
That's
entrepreneurs.
true.
A lot of them did not complete college,
Yeah.
a lot of the big names out there that are the billionaires of
Yeah.
today, they pursued, they did what I'm talking about. They're like they created something totally different that didn't exist, and so no one could have encouraged that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Rebellious entrepreneurs. I love that. That's such a great term. And it's
yeah.
true. It's about taking chances. And you think in high school, everybody is so furiously trying to be like everybody else. And yet the people who are the most successful in life are people who, A, have big dreams, who think outside the box and aren't afraid to follow them and step outside the crowd and distinguish themselves from everybody else. Right. So yeah,
Yes.
totally hear you.
Um,
A lot of people think they can't change who they are. Like, if, let's say, for our listeners out there who've been following that path, what's expected
yes.
of them, and now they're at a point where they're feeling that kind of niggling dissatisfaction. What do you say to people who think that they can't change sort of who they've decided to show up as, or change their current circumstances?
Well, it's definitely never too late to start over. Like I became a book author, and I should have done that a long time ago. I stumbled on an opportunity to help a friend of mine who was writing a book, and she needed some help with it. We became co-authors, and again, something like that takes a lot of it's. No one gives you permission to publish a book. You just
Yeah.
decide you want to do it.
Yeah.
So it's outside of the box, and it takes a lot of I'm used to deadlines and I get it done and I move on, whereas a
Yeah.
book takes years, and especially when you've got 101 other things going on. But I'm glad I got that accomplished, and trying to figure out, really how to monetize that kind of thing to make it worthwhile. So I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. And I do think as a independent contractor or an entrepreneur, whatever path you end up taking, you have to be willing to pick yourself up off the ground, because sometimes you get shot down.
Yes.
And that happened to us. We always worked very independently from home, but we became dependent upon one company for a lot of income that we were making at that time. And guess what? When that private company
Yeah.
got sold, the new people thought they wanted to get rid of the people that were making the money. They made stupid
Yeah.
mistakes, but they took themselves down, but they also took down a lot of other people with them, including
Mm,
us. We had to get our, start over, but fortunately in starting over, we had built relationships with the people that supported us. We went to them and I remember the conversations with some of them and just saying that we can't believe this is happening to us. And they're just like, well, it happens. Corporate America does not respect the people that have put all the hard work into building up the company,
Yeah.
especially in the light of a sale. And so, but we're here to support you. We don't care, what you're calling your magazine or we're doing business with you. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you make that transition. So we actually took 100% of our business with us when we started our own thing, even though we were independent contractors with them. We
Yeah.
kind of let them get in a position of eating out of their hand. And so you have to be careful of those things too.
Well, and there's been a big shift. It's interesting you say that. I think, as a young kid growing up, you're quite right. People thought the way to go was get that job, stay with
Yeah.
them until retirement. And that loyalty tended to work both ways, right? And then along the way, the corporate mentality has changed now where people are considered sort of dispensable tools, which also reinforces why it's so important to find your passion, pursue your passion, decide what will light you up. And I think we got to recognize too that if we want our lives to change, everybody assumes it'll just magically happen, but we need to change. So, what do you
Yeah.
think are some of the most effective ways to start making that shift?
Well, I just think so many people just are defined by their career. First of all, like as Americans, we put way too much emphasis on who we are. Like a lot of times you'll go to,
Yeah.
you'll go somewhere and the first
Mhm.
question people
Yeah.
ask you is,
What do you do?
what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, so I kind of like to give them answers that surprise them sometimes. Like I'm a painter. Really?
Yeah.
No. I paint pictures, like through words, like,
Yeah.
you know, I
Nice.
like to throw off people when they say that, So I can't paint worth a darn. I'm terrible at art, but I
Yeah.
love art, but I paint in a different way.
I like
Yeah.
that. Now, I know you draw a distinction between living life, I think you call it on track versus off the rails. Explain
Right.
that a little bit for our listeners.
Well, on track is that path that everyone wants to keep you on. You go down a path and you do well at your career and you make a sensible decision about who you marry and you just live this life that is, and you get to the end of it and you're like, what took me down this path and,
Yeah.
and why and why am I unhappy and unfulfilled? They say, about only about 8% of people when they get to looking at retirement look back and say, oh, I'm really proud of what I did. It was all worth it.
That's
It,
sad.
that's
8.
really, really sad. And people get depressed and because they get just caught in that rut. So that's to me, that's on track. And if you want to get off of that track, you got to go off the rails. Usually when I say, do you want to live your life on track or off the rails, people think the right answer is on track because that means you know, you're level headed and
I love that. And
things
it's
that we're
also
taught are great things, uh, but
it'll help
you
people
got to be a
remember
little
it too.
crazy and off the rails to really fulfill your passion.
Yeah, that's so good. So good and memorable, right? Much more memorable. So that's smart. And
Exactly.
we hear so much about life balance these days. I'd
Mhm.
love what your
Yes.
thoughts are on that issue.
Well, your career is only part of who you are. And you
Yeah.
have to remember that, you can't, because you could get really, I remember when we went through a transition that I've mentioned before, it was like a lot of our relationships, and my husband and I worked together. So, when it happened to me,
Yeah.
it happened to him too. Like, it was all of a sudden, we're not making the money we used to make.
Yeah.
But we realized like a lot of our relationships were built up in these business connections. And that can be a good thing, but it can also, who are you outside of that?
Yeah.
And then, our kids, when after they graduated from college, we realized a lot of our relationships with other people were built around our kids. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen that we
Yeah.
don't have a network of friends anymore if we don't have our business friends and our people that our kids went to school with. So I think you have to realize at some point that you got to have a life outside of
Yeah.
business and parenting.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because my daughter and I created for exactly that reason. Like we tend to have these very to-do driven lives, and we focus to the extent that we focus on making our lives better on one aspect, usually career, you're right, or health or relationship, but people don't have that kind of balance across the board. So we created this planner and we called it the purpose planner, and you go through and you're checking off, health and fitness, wealth and
Right.
finance, but also growth and learning, quality of our life experiences, all of these different categories to make sure that you are living a fully engaged life and have that balance across all the important categories. So,
One of the things that just drives me crazy too is also living on track is, thinking that you get to a certain age. Like I know a lot of people that are the same age as me, they might as well be 101
yeah,
by the way
yeah,
they act and that
right.
they don't go out and do things because they're supposed to sit at home. They're, like they're aging and they don't, they're not playful at all.
Yeah,
They feel like they're just supposed to be an old person that's
yeah,
boring, like
yeah.
we have a grandson now and I had
Yeah.
him convinced for a while that I was not an adult, I was a kid. And I said, I don't want to be one of those adults.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think you just decide who you want to be
that's so
and
true.
you don't have to wear the badges that everybody else wears, but just because they reach a certain age.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true. And try different things. My
Yes.
husband and I went to Antarctica, last year, and just got back from the Amazon a couple of months ago. Just trying to think outside the box, live outside the box, right?
I know people too that are, they're afraid to travel to certain
Yeah,
places because they've been told, oh,
yeah,
and a lot of things that they believe are really propaganda or
yeah,
not true, or they're just so, oh, we can never do that because we have a job that only gives us 2 weeks a year off. We could
yeah.
never do something like that, like, so people just get into it,
Yeah,
letting other people
that's
control
so
their
true.
lives and their thinking.
Yeah,
And then how many people do you know that are like, they live their lives around politics and stuff. It's like,
yes,
that
yeah,
is one way to let other people control your
yeah,
life. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to let either party tell me how to
Yeah.
think.
Well, and I
So,
love that you've touched on because that really comes down to that fear, right? And today,
yeah,
especially, I'd say post 9/11, North
yes,
America has become a very fear-driven kind of society. It's like, Karl Marx would say it's replaced the new religion as the opiate of the people. Just keep them in a constant fearful state. It's quite
right.
terrifying.
And I do think that some people, politicians and different people use that to manipulate
Yeah.
us as
Yes,
well.
it can be
I think there's,
powerful. And I
we
want to
need
circle
to
back, Beverly, to something you said that I think is really important too, and that's that failure piece. And we sort of, I probably took us off track there in a direction, but I just as you were saying about that fear and manipulation, don't be afraid to fail, right? Like embrace your failure as your greatest opportunity for growth. And, we are a society that fears, we're talking about fear, that fear of failure runs so strong. And I think with it, fear of success, like, oh, what if I get too big for my britches? What if I can't handle it? So I think following your passion, go in with eyes wide open that you're going to fall down and you're going to make mistakes and there'll be failures, and hold them up to the light and go, what can I learn from this? And celebrate them. I had a friend who used to call them
a lot of
fail-abrations, which I
people
just love.
a lot of people won't stray from their path because of some benefits that they might get at a traditional
Yeah.
type of job or things like that too. And they're just held back by that belief that
Yeah.
this is what you need and
Yeah.
nothing else works for you. Like
Yeah.
you just really have to have a strong enough personality and drive and passion
Yeah.
to pursue what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah. And believe in the value of that passion. I love that. So what would you say is one of the most surprising things or shocking things that you discovered either was while doing this work or writing your books?
Well, I just think I've really discovered a lot about myself in the process of writing the books. I have a 2 book series. It's called Anna from Atlanta and Anna of Iowa. And it's about this amazing woman and she analyzed it, the real life person that it's based on had an uncanny ability to like really look at people and size them up what they're
Yeah.
all about, and I didn't realize until later that a lot of the personalities that I had written into the book were things that I felt,
Yeah.
things that life
Yeah.
experiences that I myself felt. And I was very much like the narrator in the book, actually, with some life problems, family things, her parents' relationship was not so good. And there's a lot that I didn't know that I was learning in that process. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, as I did the research for those books, one of the most surprising things that I found out was nothing is stranger than there's no fiction that you could write that's stranger than the truth.
That's so
And
true.
I looked for like story angles from history, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe these books were set in the Great Depression and World War II.
Yeah.
And I do think, having that experience of really studying that history to be
Yeah.
accurate in the writing for that time period. Now I look at it and I see, boy, we are repeating so many of these things.
Oh, don't even get me started. We need a whole
Yeah,
new podcast episode on that. I
yes,
so agree with you.
yeah. But people, they forget about history and,
Yeah.
and what we should have learned.
Oh,
We
we are
try to
so
we
doomed to
try to
repeat
cover
it.
up a lot of lessons that, from the
Yes.
past too. So
Yeah. Yeah, we
yeah,
do. We repeat our history over and over again. It
yeah.
is so disheartening. Now, do you have any non-negotiable habits that you're sort of committed to daily?
Just being stubborn about not letting anyone tell me how to live my life.
Nice.
If that's, the
Yeah.
government or, or whatever it is. I feel like, I
Yeah.
just have that in me.
Yeah. Now
And,
you
but
do
it's
a lot of
okay.
interviews, obviously, of people who are, I assume, very
Yes.
interesting when you talk about their passions. Do you have a favorite interviewee?
Well, I had the opportunity to interview another journalist, and that was probably the biggest compliment that she paid me, is that she reached out to me because she was the recipient of one of my publications. It was a private publication for
Yeah.
her private neighborhood that I did, which is a very wealthy neighborhood. She's very well known. You really know how to nail it when you write stories on people. And I'm like,
Nice.
wow, that's a huge compliment coming from you. And I'd like to do a story on you. So I ended up doing a story on her, which is really interesting to interview somebody that I had a lot in common with, but she's a lot more, well known because she's a TV celebrity, if you will. And the other things too, like I interviewed one of my favorite podcasts is I interviewed a young girl who's getting her master's degree. She's in Italy right now getting her master's degree in motorsports marketing and supercar stuff. And she's been a race car driver since she was like 13 years old.
Wow.
First of all, like I didn't even know that there were degrees in that kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
And second, like she is like that's an industry only 10% of women are involved in. And
Oh, I
so
bet.
future is so bright in that industry. Just
Huh.
like in the home building industry that I write about a lot, women have a huge opportunity. And it's not the type of opportunity, it's not like climbing up on a ladder and framing a house
Yeah.
that are the opportunities of the future in that industry. So I think women especially should open their minds to industries that they might not have thought about.
Yes.
You can really make a difference and build a handsome career. We had a plumbing problem at our house, and we were surprised that an 18-year-old Hispanic girl came out to
Nice.
fix our toilet. And
Yeah.
I told my husband, man, she's gonna own the plumbing business.
Yeah. I
She's
love
got
it.
she's gonna be wealthy beyond what she can even envision right now, because
Yeah.
that industry is so in trouble for not having enough labor. And then
Yeah.
the fact that she's a minority, she's a woman.
Yeah. This is
She's
beautiful.
gonna be, she can't fail. She's gonna be just, you
Yeah.
know, I'm
Well,
not
again,
sure
some
what
of that is
inspired her to
thinking.
get in that industry, but I was interested that she chose that industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
presumably is passionate about it. I love it. And again, it's that thinking outside the box. And
exactly.
also, as you were saying that, it reminded me the extent to which unconscious gender bias can really impact on the choices that we make. And we're not. So being aware of the extent to which those expectations that are the conditioning that's put on us from the time we're young.
Yeah.
And as you say, going off the rails as opposed to staying so-called on track, a great solution for that.
Right. In the home building industry, the average age of builders is in their late 50s.
Wow.
There's no one behind them.
Wow.
And because millennials are not interested in working outside,
Yeah.
so they're trying to go back to shop class and get kids interested. But I think the builders who are in their late 50s they don't even know what home building is going to look like in
Yeah.
20 years. It's not going to be done the same way. So they don't exactly know how to recruit the
Yeah.
next generation.
That's true.
But one of the things that they have identified is that, we've been ignoring the fact that women might be great for this
Yeah.
industry. There are some great women, female builders that I've
Yeah.
interviewed the years, but not too many.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm thinking of up here locally as well. I can't think of one now that you say
Yeah.
that. So, yeah. So what is one of the greatest I can't believe how quick this is gone. My gosh, there's so many directions we could be taking this in. I normally like to end by asking what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've ever had in your life, Beverly? Doesn't have to be about this topic at all, just one of those things that makes you go, and think differently about something or how you show up.
I think it started as a early in my childhood. I challenged everything, and my parents thought maybe I should become an attorney too, because I would
I
like to
can
argue
relate.
about things. And why does our religion believe that that other religion isn't any good, or why do people do, make this choice?
Yeah.
And so I just think I think it started then, and then then you kind of think, well, now I got a lot of responsibility, and then and you kind of find yourself slipping back onto the track,
Yeah.
like making the sensible choices
Yeah.
until you get knocked off again, But I'm really grateful that I have not followed that path, that I've been lucky in life to be able to pursue my passions,
Yeah.
even though it hasn't been painless. It's,
Yeah.
we've the finances have been up and down at times, and but it's way better than just accepting the status quo
Yeah.
and living your life according to the way someone else defined life should
Yeah.
be.
And what a great epiphany to have at an early age, because most
Yeah.
people, I think, are if they're lucky enough to have it at all, it comes much later in life, and then you've got all that regret of all that wasted time. So, where can people learn more about you, Beverly? About you, about your books?
Well, we have the People Pursuing Passions podcast, which we're almost halfway through our first season of
Congrats!
episodes. We've recorded a whole year's worth of episodes, and they're being released a month at a time.
Yeah,
So those have started, and you can find People Pursuing Passions on Apple or Spotify. And then the Savvy List is my website, and that houses all of the stories about people pursuing passions, whether it's the home building industry or the
yeah,
automotive industry. We do a lot of automotive writing, or it's people that are pursuing a passion of philanthropy, or
yeah.
artists, or we try to cover all between the podcasts and what we post online. We try to cover all the various things that people might be passionate about, and the more unusual their career, the better, so
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we'll make sure for our listeners to put that in our show notes so that you can reach out and check out all of these fabulous resources. And if nothing else, would make for interesting reading and exploring. And who knows, maybe some of those will spark some passions that you have buried and
yes,
can
yes,
reawaken them for you. So,
thank you.
so thanks so much for joining us, Beverly. This has been a fabulous discussion, and I think a conversation we don't have often enough. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
And for our listeners, I'm sure you've got lots of value from this. Make sure, as I always say, to give the gift of sharing as well. If you have people in your life who have maybe stayed on track and not taken that risk to get off the rails and follow their true purpose and passion, if you've got kids in your life or people around you, your friends, make sure to give the gift of sharing and spark their interest with this idea. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that already, because these are important messages. And before we sign off today, just want to share some ways we can work together. If you're looking to uplevel your negotiation skills to negotiate your best life, because let's face it, all of life is a negotiation. I've got everything from online to group to my signature VIP or one-on-one masterminds to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life. And if that sounds interesting, be sure to check out our website at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And speaking of the art of feminine negotiation, if you haven't grabbed my book yet, be sure to grab the copy of The Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.